But the longest time, technical leverage was basically gated by how much money you had. Well, that gate, it's been completely shattered. What we're going to do today is dissect this huge gap between what people think it costs to build software and what the new reality actually is. So check this out. A non-technical founder goes to Microsoft's Azure team and gets a quote. The objective was pretty simple: deploy a single diagnostic AI model for the dental industry. The price tag they got back? A cool $1.5 million. I mean, that's a number designed to keep people like you out of the game. And this is the actual monthly cost to build and run that exact same system. The difference here, the sheer scale of this arbitrage, it's not just an opportunity. It's a massive signal that something has fundamentally changed. And you know, the timeline is just as wild. What Microsoft quoted in months, and what would have taken years in the old world, was built from scratch in just 45 days. And get this, a single person, a single operator, bootstrapped a six-figure SaaS business with absolutely zero prior coding knowledge. Let that sink in.
Look, this isn't some one-off fluke. It's a sign that the monopoly on software engineering has totally collapsed. So now, we're going to analyze the precise framework that actually makes this whole thing possible.
Okay, but before we jump into the how-to, you've got to understand why this is even possible right now. It really boils down to two core strategic ideas that are defining this new game.
All right, first up is something called crumb theory. See, the biggest mistake most people make is they try to solve an industry's #1 problem. That's the wrong way to go. The real strategy is to find the crumbs. You know, the tedious, manual, super unglamorous problems that the big players just ignore. In a huge market like, say, dentistry, those crumbs can easily be worth 8 or even 9 figures.
And that leads us right into the second tactic, spawn camping. For you gamers out there, you know exactly what this is. You don't invent the new weapon. You strategically wait for a model update, like a huge improvement in voice latency or better text and image generation, to spawn a solution. The second that new capability drops, the business opportunity unlocks instantly.
So once you get that new context, a repeatable blueprint starts to take shape. Let's break down the actionable framework, step by step, from just an idea to a real working product.
The whole process breaks down into 5 simple steps. 1. Find the problem. 2, and this is key, build only the core output. 3. Validate it with actual professionals. 4. Then you build the front end. And 5. You vibe code the whole thing together. This right here, this is the blueprint for someone who isn't a traditional coder.
And this quote really just nails the most important principle of all. In the beginning, you are not building a fancy dashboard. You are not building a login system or a pretty user interface. You are building one and only one thing, the core output that actually solves the problem. What you need is fast, brutal feedback, not pretty pictures. Which of course brings us to validation. There are 2 ways to do this. There's the Greg approach, which is basically a failure loop. You're asking ChatGPT if your idea is good, you're building way too much by yourself, and you're avoiding talking to actual humans. Then there's the Chad approach, which is the exact opposite. You build just enough to have a real conversation with professionals in that industry, and you get immediate, useful feedback from them. Okay, so you've validated your core output. Now, you need the tools to actually build this thing. This is the specific, super lean tech stack that makes this entire blueprint work. And the best part, it's accessible, and more importantly, it's cheap. It's just 4 tools. That's it. You've got Cursor, which is your AI native code editor, then GitHub to store your code. Render is what you'll use to deploy it and make it live on the web. And finally, Supabase handles your database and all the user authentication stuff. Once you connect these 4, that's it. You have the entire infrastructure you need. That's the new barrier to entry.
But here's the thing. The tech stack isn't where most people fail. Not even close. The real test is psychological. This new way of building compresses the emotional journey into these insane highs and crushing lows. And you have to understand this cycle or you won't make it.
So when you first start, right, you write a prompt, you hit deploy, and boom, a new feature just appears. You are going to instantly climb to the top of what's called Mount Stupid. Your confidence is through the roof, and the whole thing just feels way, way too easy.
And then it happens. Something breaks. You get some cryptic error message that makes absolutely no sense, and that feeling of being a genius, it just evaporates. All you're left with is this intense frustration and a whole lot of self-doubt.
This is the moment.
You've just entered the valley of despair, and if you don't realize that this is a totally normal part of the process, you're probably going to quit. Seriously, persistence is the only thing that matters at this point. Pushing through this is the real work.
So, what's the verdict here? We are absolutely living through a massive paradigm shift. The ability to build really significant software, it's no longer locked behind a computer science degree or millions of dollars in capital. The new gate, it's just logic and persistence.
You know, the pessimists out there, they're going to tell you why this vibe coding stuff isn't real engineering. And yeah, they might sound smart, but they're still playing an old, outdated game. The optimists, they're the ones who are just quietly building.
Look, this opportunity, this incredible gap between perception and reality, it's not going to last forever. The barriers are down for sure, but that window's already starting to close as the rest of the market catches on. So the only question left is, what are you going to build?